So today, we're gonna fresh crack this Glenmo 12, the original. That's right, Glenmo 12, the original, not Glenmo 10, the original. But I do have a bottle of Glenmo 10, the original. Hold on, let me get that real quick. So yeah, here we are. We have Glenmo 12, the original, and Glenmo 10, the original. And this one's not a fresh bottle. I've had it for a little while, but um, we're gonna try our hand at some new Glenmo and compare it to the old Glenmo and see what you can expect or anything, or if we can barely tell or whatever. Obviously, they've improved the age statement by 2 years. Um, and again, this is a Moet Hennessy Louis Vuitton product. Highland single malt Scotch whiskey, 40% ABV, 80 proof, chill filtered, color added. They use first and second fill ex bourbon casks that primarily come from Jack Daniels and Heaven Hill, but probably other places too. So again, this is kind of like this orange creamsicle, honey, and marmalade kind of whiskey in a typical Highland style, I suppose. Light, very light and effervescent spirit. This is something that's known about Glenmo. And of course, they always have these giraffes everywhere. These giraffes because they have very tall stills. They've got the tallest stills in Scotland. That's why they got a giraffe on all of their packaging. And that tall still produces lots of copper contact going up into the neck there. So you have produce a very light spirit, very light on the palate. Again, effervescent is a word that commonly gets thrown around. Um, and again, the luxury brand Moet Hennessy, Louis Vuitton, they also own Hennessy, obviously. Well, they also do Ardbeg. If you're a Isla enjoyer and didn't know, they also are behind Ardbeg. Um, this looking shit doesn't want to come off. What the frick? We're gonna have to just pop her. That does not want to come off for whatever reason. Since 1843, the Glenmorangie distillery. Um, so we'll just grab this again. We'll grab this 10 out, which again, it's it's been drunk down a little bit. It's past halfway here, but I don't think it's been like that bad off that we're gonna get most of the difference being in open bottle syndrome. Um, Again, it's slightly darker on this 12 year, but we do know that Glenmo uses added color, so that might not really particularly mean anything. Um, so we'll pour a bit of this one. And we'll pour a bit of the 10 too, but we're just going to like prime this, if you will. Um, to look at later. We'll just try to focus on the newer one for the moment. But at least they'll be poured at the same time here. Whoop. All right, so there's your coloration there. Again, this is 10 years, first and second fill ex bourbon. No, 12 years, I guess. This one's a 12. But again, there is some added color use here, as far as I understand. So this you can't necessarily judge much by this. Um, and here's side by side with the 10-year-old. So the 12 definitely looks darker in color. Whatever you want to take from that. This is the 12. Man, I thought I was gonna sneeze, and I got baited. Don't you just fucking hate that? It like does that build up, and you're like, I'm gonna sneeze, and it builds up and it builds up and then goes away, and you like miss you miss that release almost, and you're like, fuck. It's like almost annoying. All right, so we kind of expect at a Glenmoe 12, the original, like orange and vanilla, peaches and cream, marmalade, this kind of like idea, sweet citrus and vanilla kind of notes. Oh, it's hitting very peach for me, actually. Very like um, freshly opened Dole fruit cup. Not very cherry. Maybe strange reference, but oh, quite juicy. Yeah, quite a juicy. Yeah, quite juicy peaches for me actually today on this 12 year. Again, like honestly feels like I opened one of those fucking fruit cups in syrup that come in the clear plastic, you know? That's what it smells like. Oh, that's a good impact. Really, really light fruits, orchard fruits, and citrus fruits like peaches, apples, orange. Very juicy. Some of that malt is creeping in the background. A little bit malty, kind of creeping in there. Not getting much vanilla, but to me, all nice, light, bright, sweet fruit juices, um, and malts. Pretty nice. And that's something like we've already like I've tried to express a bunch, and felt like I did try to express when we talked about the Glenmoe 10 in our review recap, just how well that this bottle holds up to 40% alcohol dilution, despite the fact that like a lot of 40% alcohol whiskeys are just really not the best presentation, really don't offer much on the palate. I've always felt like the Glenmoe 10 and maybe even now the 12 kind of like have a robustness that can really tolerate being diluted down to 40% alcohol without like suffering too much, at least on the aroma. We'll see the palate here in a minute, but my experience too is even with the palate, you get a good amount of flavor, even for quite a low proof, which kind of improves drinkability, especially if you're not used to higher ABVs. Now, obviously, if they were offered at a higher proof, they would have a higher impact of flavor. So just because they're 4% alcohol and doing pretty well doesn't mean like you couldn't get a nice, really juicy, meaty whiskey if maybe we offered them at 46% or if they had a cask strength variant. But I think the target market for Glenmoe hasn't really been the kind of consumer that was looking for a cask strength product necessarily. I can't think of any Glenmoe off the top of my head that's even offered at cask strength. I don't know if they have one normally. So that being said, not much for the sweet character. Like you get some sweet fruits, but that vanilla is like slowly creeping in, but I'm not really getting like that honey kind of thing that you might get out of it, but that might develop from here. So, yeah, Glenmo, 12-year-old, the original on the palette, Sludgeba. Good impact of flavor, quite malty. Get that citrus in there. On the finish, get a little bit of spice. Again, still that malts, citrus, a little bit of barrel impact on the finish. Finish is like pretty acceptable. We'll say like medium-ish range. Now, I'm good. I'm really curious how much more, like, anecdotally, I don't want to say anecdotally, but on the first impression, this feels stronger and more robust than the, like, Glenmo 10. This one that we have poured over here. But I don't know if that's just because maybe I haven't had Glenmo 10 in a while, and I'm like, you know, we'll do a comparison here in a minute, but again, I'm again surprised at how well the palate takes the water. Such good flavor on the palate. It's almost surprising. And the reason I say this is because I've had so many 40% alcohol whiskeys where I'm like, where's the flavor? The palate is flat. Like, get me something. Find me something. And this is just, it's bringing it. It really is. That being said, I haven't had much of a sweetness come in the evolution yet. There's a little bit of like that vanilla in there, but it's not that much. Again, that might be something that develops with some more air in the bottle. Again, this is not hitting so much. Like I remember, again, Glenmo, peaches and cream, orange creamsicle, sweet, citrus and vanilla, some peaches. But this is like hitting to me more like more malty, more orchard fruit, less sweetness, less vanilla than I remember of like the typical profile, but it could be just that it's a fresh crack of this bottle. Could be that the additional age has changed some things. Yeah, I definitely don't remember the Glenmo being this malty. This 12 is hitting me pretty malty. Which isn't necessarily objectively a bad thing. It's just that I remember like getting more of the like citrus and vanilla flavors and more of the sweet flavors and less of like the malt character. But this 12 is coming across much more malt forward than I remember. All right, so we've had this 10 kind of waiting in the wings here. Oh, they're really similar. Yeah, but on first like initial like impression, this 10, it hits more vanilla and citrus to me, more slightly sweet, and this 12 more on the fruits, more on creeping into those orchard fruit territories like apple and apple juice. They're very similar though. Like the difference is like 10%, maybe 10%, which could be down to like fill level, right? Which in effect is like not necessarily a bad thing, but like again, we upgraded age statements. We would like if it was like noticeably better, you know? But I almost don't want to say it's even like objectively better. On the nose, it kind of just seems like the 10 that I have is a little bit more vanilla and citrus, and the 12 that I have is more fruits and malts. But that could change over time. We remind ourselves of the 12-year-old version here. Breakfast made, nice. What's the proof? These are both 40% alcohol. All right, now we're going to do a compare on the palate with the 10 here. That's 100 rate, 80 proof. Huh. I feel like I can tell that maybe the 10 is a little lighter on flavor on the palate. And the flavors are slightly different. Again, it feels like the 12 is like maybe a little bit more fruity and malty, and the 10 is like maybe a little bit more citrus and vanilla. But it's hard to tell. They're very similar. I do think just subjectively that the 10 feels a little lighter. It could be because we know for sure that we had 2 more years age on the 12. I don't know if I'd easily be able to like pick which one is the 10 or 12 blind. It's pretty close. But going in knowing the difference, the 10 feels like it could be a little bit lighter on the palate. Which again is like the combination of, hey, this 12 has had 2 more years maturation, and hey, this 12 has had more angel share applied to it, so there's slightly less water in the vatting. But I mean, I stand by everything I've ever said about the 10-year-old. It's a pretty good flavor impact. Still tasty. You still get like citrus and malt and vanillas. and some spices, some barrel at the end. But the 12 is just maybe like a touch richer, but not by a whole lot. Which I guess is maybe somewhat what we would expect, that the 12 is just, it's a couple years, it's a little bit richer, but ultimately it's a very similar product. Do you feel like it's gained some value going to 10 or 12? Yeah, it's gained some value, I think. That being said, I don't know if they marked the price up on this newer one. I feel like this one I was buying in my market area around 71 Canadian dollars, and I think this one is now roughly 75 Canadian dollars. And they may have made that price increase regardless, even without the like bump up in age statement, but it feels like they're charging a couple bucks more here and there for a higher age statement, which I think is fair. It's not all like like good for the consumer in terms of like price to quality, I suppose. And like you're getting a straight quality increase for the same price. But I think overall, it's a better product. And I know Glenmo, like the original, has been something that people go to, have been going to for new Scotch drinkers for ages and ages. It's a very well crafted, low ABV but highly effective single malt that shines in the Highland style, and very light on the palate, not too thick and overwhelming. So in that way, I think they've only created a better product here, bumping the age statement up. But for someone who is like had plenty of whiskeys, the change in these two, it's not a night and day change. It's not something that like, hey, the 12 is the hot new thing, go and get a bottle. It's kind of just like, it's the same as the 10, but it's slightly better. There's nothing to write home about if you've been around the block. But I think overall it's a better expression than the 10, at least by this early comparison. It's just slightly richer, slightly a little bit more impact on the palate. The flavor profile is basically the same, with like maybe a 10% skew more in a malty, fruity direction, at least compared to the 10 that I have that's a bit low on fill. But still pretty good. Yeah, I can still recommend 10 and 12, the original.